I was told never to eat the cookies after 4 a.m., now I know why. Have you ever stared into a flickering fluorescent light and felt like it was staring back? Ever taken a job not for survival, not even for ambition, but because silence felt too loud and your own thoughts too untrustworthy? Have you ever volunteered to be alone, in the dark, just to prove to yourself you weren't afraid of nothing? Yeah. That was me. It began a couple of weeks ago, though time's been slippery since then. I signed on for the night shift at this bottom-shelf sandwich dive called Subsational. It squatted like an afterthought at the edge of town, flanked by a vape shop with permanently drawn shutters and a laundromat that coughed electricity through its lights like it was dying slowly. The kind of place that time forgot, and maybe on purpose. There were no crowds. That was the point. I wasn't looking for noise. I craved a dead zone. A ghost shift. Just me, some bread, and a decent playlist. That was my logic that I didn't need the gig. I was crashing rent-free with my cousin, still padded with savings from my last job. So why'd I take it? Boredom. Pure, gnawing, soul-scraping boredom. And boredom makes bad decisions seem reasonable. The manager, a hollow-eyed guy named Greg, didn't even pretend to care. "You seem chill," he muttered, sliding over the paperwork. "Just follow the rules and you'll be fine." I remember laughing. I should have asked more questions. My first solo shift arrived like a whisper. Nothing dramatic. No thunderclap. Just a clock-in beep and the sound of Greg's old boots dragging toward the exit. He showed me the ropes over the last 2 nights, rotating the bread trays, slicing meat like it was sacred geometry, and tossing sandwiches to the occasional glassy-eyed stoner who wandered in looking for enlightenment between 2 slices of sourdough. But tonight, just as he slung on his coat and turned to leave, Greg handed me a laminated sheet. His fingers trembled, not a lot, but enough that I noticed. "These are the night rules," he said flatly. "They're specific. Do exactly what they say. No improvising." I blinked at him. "Okay, sure." He didn't budge. "Say it like you mean it." There was no warmth in his eyes. Just pressure. Like he was silently daring me to not take this seriously. I forced a nod. "Yeah. Got it." He stared a moment longer, then slipped into the shadows outside without another word. I turned the laminated sheet over in my hands. It was slick. Too slick. Like it had been wiped clean one too many times. The title read, "Subsational Night Shift RULES Keep the Front Door Locked After 1:13 a.m. Exactly. Not 1:12. Not 1:14. If someone knocks on the window after 2:06 a.m., do not look directly at them. The meat slicer turns on by itself around 2:30 a.m. Don't unplug it. Just leave it be. If a customer asks for the bold menu, apologize and say we don't serve that anymore. Do not ask what they mean. Between 3 o'clock and 3:15 a.m., you may hear someone crying in the bathroom. Don't go in. If you see someone who looks exactly like you standing near the soda machine, clock out and wait in the freezer until 3:45 a.m. Do not touch the sandwich with the blue toothpick. Always say, "Good night," to the man in the tan trench coat, even if you didn't see him come in. If the lights flicker more than 3 times in a row, sing, "Happy Birthday," until they stop. Never, under any circumstances, eat the cookies after 4:00 a.m. So yeah. Weird as hell, but even then, even with all the eerie little warnings typed out in bold on that laminated sheet like a ghost whispering through plastic, I didn't buy into it. Not really. I'm not that guy. I wasn't raised on ghost stories. I didn't sleep with a night light. I wasn't scared of shadows or mirrors or thin things that whisper through windows, quirky corporate humor, I muttered, flipping the sheet over in my hands. But you know how some sentences don't let go? How they cling to your mind like a film on your skin? Sticky, wrong, lingering long after you've looked away. For me, it was rule number 4. If a customer asks for the bold menu, apologize and say we don't serve that anymore. Do not ask what they mean. What old menu? Why would anyone bring that up at 2 a.m.? And more importantly, what happens if I ask? Curiosity scratched at the back of my skull like something alive, something hungry. But the rational part of me, what little still existed, chalked it up to hazing, some messed up inside joke. A psychological test Greg pulled on every new hire, just to see who could handle the silence. That I pictured him sitting out in the parking lot, engine idling, laughing his ass off as I tried not to freak out over some made-up haunted sandwich policy, and for a while, that's all it was, quiet. Ordinary. Dull, but dullness is deceptive. Dullness is the calm before something notices you. The shift slogged on. A group of teenagers wandered in around midnight, the scent of weed practically trailing behind them like a fog bank. They ordered 3 footlongs, argued over toppings, and laughed too loud at nothing in particular. When they left, the bell above the door gave a weak jingle, and the silence came back, heavier than before. I wiped the counters, refilled the soda machine, stared at my phone, scrolling through dead memes and half-baked Reddit threads to keep my brain busy. Then I noticed the time, 1:12 a.m. That tickled something in the back of my mind, a memory crawling out of the dark. Rule 1, keep the front door locked after 1:13 a.m. exactly. Not 1:12. Not 1:14. The words clung to me like static. I glanced at the door. It stood there, unbothered, a sliver of night stretching out behind its smudged glass panes. Nothing unusual. Nothing wrong. I even smiled to myself, one of those crooked grins you wear when you know you're playing along with something stupid. But still, I played along. Tick. 1:13. I walked to the door, my footsteps sounding far too loud in the empty shop. My fingers hovered over the lock for a second longer than necessary. Then, with a soft click, I slid the deadbolt into place, and that's when I heard it, not footsteps. Not a voice. Not even a knock. A scrape. A slow, deliberate scratch, like someone was dragging the edge of a broken fingernail across the outside of the glass. It made my teeth clench and the hairs on my neck stand up as if my skin understood something my mind refused to accept. I leaned in. Just a little. My breath misted the window, fogging up the view. Nothing. The parking lot outside sat cold and empty, painted silver by the overhead lights. The pavement was cracked, familiar. Still. Dead. I stood there for another minute, maybe 2, staring into that quiet nothingness. Then I shook it off. Told myself it was the wind, or a branch, or hell. Maybe Greg was messing with me from the shadows. So I went back to the counter, started building a turkey sub with mechanical precision. Bread. Meat. Cheese. My hands moved, but my eyes flicked constantly to the glowing red digits on the clock overhead, because I knew what was coming next. 2:06 a.m. Rule 2, if someone knocks on the window after 2:06 a.m., do not look directly at them. It sounded so absurd when I first read it. Now it felt like a countdown. 2:03. I wiped the blade. 2:04. I rearranged the toppings. 2:05. My heart thudded once, too hard. My palms were slick. 2:06, and then, like a line being crossed, it happened. 3 knocks. Measured. Methodical. Final, not at the front. The side window. The one no one ever uses. The one that stares directly into the alley where even the streetlights don't bother shining. That I froze. My entire body clenched as if something cold had passed straight through me. Don't look directly at them. My eyes darted toward the floor. But my curiosity? It chewed on my restraint like a dog on a bone. So I cheated. I turned my head, just a little. Just enough to catch the edge of the side window and the stainless steel reflection behind the prep line. There was something there, tall. Too tall. Thin as hunger. Its outline was human-shaped, but wrong, like a mannequin built by someone who'd only heard rumors of what people looked like. It didn't shift. It didn't twitch. It just stood there. Watching. Or at least I felt watched. My skin crawled, my breath caught in my throat like I'd swallowed ice. That I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I could barely think. So I did the only thing that felt remotely safe. I backed away. One step. Then another. My knees felt like they were on loan from someone far braver than me. I slid down behind the prep counter, my back pressed to the cold metal as the knocking continued, slow, steady. Like it had all the time in the world. Eventually, it stopped. I waited a full 5 minutes before looking again. The window was empty, nothing but my own reflection and the quiet buzz of electricity overhead. I exhaled, shaky and shallow. I wanted to tell myself I imagined it, that my brain was just filling the quiet with noise. But something inside me, some primal, ancient thing, was already awake now. And it didn't believe in coincidences. Exactly at 2:30 a.m., the meat slicer screamed to life like it had been waiting. No warning. No warm-up hum. Just a sudden shriek of metal, spinning furiously in the dead air, and I screamed. I won't sugarcoat it or pretend I held it together. I screamed. Not a brave yell or a startled shout. It was the kind of involuntary, animal noise you make when your body forgets it's human. High-pitched. Panicked. Helpless. My breath caught mid-throat, my hands fumbled against the edge of the prep table, and I nearly knocked over a stack of sliced provolone. The slicer stood alone near the back counter. No one near it. Nothing on the blade. Yet it whirred with purpose, sharp and hungry, like it was sawing through ghosts I couldn't see. My first thought was electrical malfunction. Maybe I'd bumped a switch or a timer. My instincts kicked in. I stepped forward, ready to yank the plug from the socket and shut the damn thing up. Then I remembered the rule. The meat slicer turns on by itself around 2:30 a.m. Don't unplug it. Just leave it be. My hand froze inches from the cord. I hesitated, then I backed away slowly, my legs trembling like piano wires. I turned my back on the blade, which felt like turning my back on a wild animal. It kept spinning. For 10 minutes, it sliced nothing. Just that shrill motor whine, reverberating off the tile walls like a banshee caught in a loop. The shop felt smaller with that sound bouncing through it, tighter, like the walls were contracting. 10 minutes. No more. No less. At 2:40 a.m., it stopped, not slowed. Not sputtered. Stopped. Like it knew its time was up, and for a moment, I thought the worst of it was over. I was wrong, because at 2:47 a.m., someone came in. Or more accurately, was already inside. I swear to you on everything I know, I never heard the door open. I had just looked at the front door 5 seconds earlier, still locked from 1:13. Still latched tight. Yet suddenly, he was there, standing by the register. No footsteps. No sound of glass shifting or the chime of the bell overhead. He appeared like a glitch in the system, like the building had forgotten to keep him out. He wore a long, tattered trench coat, tan in color but stained with something that looked older than rust. One sleeve had been torn at the elbow, hanging loose like a dead limb. The coat itself didn't fit right, It sagged off his shoulders like he'd borrowed it from a corpse and hadn't taken the time to adjust. That he didn't look at me. Didn't speak at first. Just walked up to the register with the careful, deliberate gait of someone who'd done this many, many times before. That I forced a greeting, my voice cracking halfway out of my throat. "Good evening." He didn't smile. Didn't nod. "Old menu," he said flatly, voice like a shovel dragging through gravel. "You got it?" Rule 4 slammed into my brain like a freight train. If a customer asks for the bold menu, apologize and say we don't serve that anymore. Do not ask what they mean. I swallowed. My throat constricted. Words felt foreign and heavy on my tongue. "Sorry," I said, voice shaking. "We don't serve that anymore." He stared at me then, and let me tell you, I've never felt smaller. His eyes weren't angry or curious or disappointed. They were empty, like glass marbles left too long in a fire. Cold, scorched, and hollow. The kind of stare that sees through time. That he didn't respond. Just blinked, once, slowly, and turned around. Without another word, he walked straight through the back door. It didn't creak. It didn't even open, far as I could tell. One moment it was closed. The next, it wasn't, and then he was gone. I stood there, unsure whether I was breathing. I could feel my heart beating in my teeth. This place, it was bleeding the chill out of me. Sapping something vital. Some essential piece of my identity had been peeled away and discarded somewhere around 2:13 a.m. I wasn't me anymore. At least, not the me who walked in at the start of the shift, and it still wasn't over, because at 3:03 a.m., I heard her. The crying. It came from the bathroom, the women's, soft at first. Like a sob wrapped in tissue. Then louder. Higher. Ragged and wet, like grief being strangled through a throat that had screamed too many times. It wasn't background noise. It wasn't a trick of plumbing. It was real. I got halfway to the door before I stopped cold. Between 3 o'clock and 3:15 a.m., you may hear someone crying in the bathroom. Don't go in. Don't go in. My fingers were inches from the handle. I don't even remember crossing the floor. But my hand was there, reaching. I pulled it back like it had been burned. Instead, I collapsed behind the counter. Curled up behind the bread rack, hoodie yanked over my head, humming whatever tune came to mind just to drown her out. Her sobs clawed at the walls for 12 long minutes, rising and falling like waves against a cliff. Sometimes she sounded like she was right outside the bathroom. Sometimes like she was behind the freezer door. At one point, I swear she whispered my name, but I didn't move, not an inch. And then, at exactly 3:15 a.m., the crying stopped, not faded. Not slowed, stopped, like someone had flipped a switch on her grief. The silence that followed wasn't relief. It was worse. It was expectant. Then came the worst part. 3:22 a.m., not 3 o'clock, not 3:15 to 3:22, like the universe had picked an exact second just to see how far it could push me. I was wiping down the soda machine. Something about the repetition helped. It was a mindless task, grounding, almost soothing in a way I hadn't felt since the start of the shift. That was when I saw him. And the reflection. Me, standing behind the counter where I had just been seconds earlier. Same posture. Same hoodie. Same battered black sneakers. Even the exact faded scratch across my left hand, the one I got 2 days ago from a stray cat I tried to feed behind my cousin's apartment. There wasn't a doubt in my mind. This wasn't a look-alike or a trick of the light. It was me. Same slump in the shoulders. Same nervous twitch in the jaw. Same eyes, except those eyes weren't confused. They weren't panicked, they were smiling. The reflection tilted its head, slowly. Too slowly. Like the neck was figuring out how to be a neck. the rag slipped from my hand and hit the tile with a wet slap. Rule 6 surged to the front of my mind like a scream. If you see someone who looks exactly like you standing near the soda machine, clock out and wait in the freezer until 3:45 a.m. I didn't hesitate. No logic. No questions. No inner monologue, just movement that I bolted to the back, clocked out so fast I missed the button twice, and flung open the walk-in freezer door like it was the last safe place left on earth. The cold hit me like a punch, but I didn't care. No jacket. No gloves. No protection. I sat on the metal floor, my back against a wall of vacuum-sealed turkey breasts and frozen cheddar logs, teeth chattering uncontrollably. But the shakes weren't from the cold, not entirely. They came from something deeper, from knowing that version of me was still out there, doing God knows what. Wearing my face. Then it laughed, from just outside the freezer. A laugh that sounded like mine, but wasn't. It carried my rhythm, my pitch, even the wheeze I get at the end of a hard chuckle. But it was wrong. It was too rehearsed. Too perfect. Like an echo that didn't understand the original. I pressed my palms over my ears and rocked in place, the cold sinking deeper into my bones. Time crawled, the seconds stretching into torture. I counted every minute like a prisoner marking days into a wall. Finally, at 3:45 a.m., the alarm on my phone buzzed with a shrill ring. I didn't walk out. I burst out, like a man escaping his own grave. The shop was empty again, quiet. But not just quiet. Wrong quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't just absorb sound, it demands it. Like it's daring you to break it so it can punish you. I stood there, soaked in sweat that was already freezing to my back, and thought seriously, for the first time, about quitting on the spot. Just walking out and leaving it all behind. Let Greg figure it out. Let someone else survive the next night. But then, my curiosity tightened its grip on me like a noose. I was so close. 1 hour to go. One more rule. I had to know what came next. That was when I saw it. A sandwich sitting dead center on the prep counter, wrapped perfectly. Plastic taut around it like skin. Label blank. Nothing written. Nothing ordered. Just there. On top was a single toothpick. Blue. Rule 7. I remembered it as clearly as my own name. Do not touch the sandwich with the blue toothpick. I stared at it for a full minute, heart pounding so hard it felt like it was knocking on my ribs from the inside. I didn't touch it. I grabbed the nearest broom, angled the handle, and gently nudged the sandwich off the edge of the counter like I was disarming a bomb. It hit the floor and burst open. What spilled out wasn't food, not even close. No ham. No turkey. No pickles. Just dark, raw meat, veiny, purple, slick with something that smelled like rotten iron and earth. It pulsed. Twitched. Like it had a heartbeat. I gagged instantly. Sprinting to the sink, I doubled over and vomited, the acid burning my throat like battery fluid. The stench wouldn't leave me. I could still taste it. Something was alive inside that sandwich, and someone, or something, had left it for me. 4:00 a.m. Time stopped being numbers and started feeling like pressure, like the air itself got thicker. My body was shaking, cold and damp from sweat and freezer burn, but my mind was unraveling. Thread by thread. Thought by thought. I wasn't the person who clocked in anymore. I wasn't sure I was anyone at all. Then I smelled them. The cookies. It hit me like a memory, like someone had cracked open a piece of my childhood and let it leak into the present. Freshly baked. Warm. Sweet, cinnamon, brown sugar. A hint of vanilla so perfect it brought tears to my eyes. It didn't just smell good, it smelled safe, like Grandma's kitchen. Like snow days and bedtime stories. Like love wrapped in wax paper, and I wanted them. Badly. That I don't mean just craving, I mean a pull. A compulsion that started in my stomach and radiated outward. My fingers twitched. My knees actually buckled as I turned toward the tray sitting on the counter, perfectly arranged. Golden brown. Still steaming, but even through the haze of nostalgia and longing, I remembered never, under any circumstances, eat the cookies after 4 a.m. That rule didn't sound funny anymore. That I didn't hesitate. With every ounce of willpower I had left, I grabbed the tray with both trembling hands and dumped the whole thing into the trash. That's when they screamed. Yes, screamed, not metaphorically. Not some imagined horror. Actual voices. Dozens of them. High-pitched. Muffled. Human. It was like hearing children trapped underwater, all gasping and wailing at once. One cookie hit the side of the bin and let out a sound that made my ears bleed. The smell turned sour instantly. Rotten. Burnt hair and bile. I staggered back, hand clamped over my mouth, eyes wide with disbelief. My breath came in short bursts. My legs barely held me up. That smell, the false comfort, it was bait, and I had almost bitten. The clock read 4:07 a.m. Still another hour to go. I wanted to run. Just leave it all behind. But something told me I couldn't, not yet. It wasn't just about finishing the shift anymore. It was about surviving it. By 4:30, I was barely upright. My hands shook so bad I couldn't grip a broom. The silence was heavy again. No sound except the hum of the fridge compressors and my own ragged breathing. Then the lights flickered, once. Twice. 3 times, then, a 4th, and that's when the rules slammed back into my skull like a warning bell. If the lights flicker more than 3 times in a row, sing, happy birthday, until they stop. It was absurd. It was terrifying, but I did it. My voice was brittle, cracking on the high notes, trembling like a child's. Happy birthday, to you. I was crying before I hit the second line. My vision blurred, throat raw from screaming and sobbing in freezing air. Happy birthday, dear, I choked. Couldn't even say a name. I didn't know who I was singing to. Happy birthday, to you. The lights held steady, then dimmed. Then returned to normal, silence again, but not peace, never peace. That was when he returned, the man in the trench coat. No footsteps. No sound. He didn't walk in, he was just there, standing behind the register, coat even more ragged than before, his presence not just seen but felt. Like a pressure drop before a tornado. I didn't ask how he got in. Didn't ask why. This time, I remembered the rule. Always say, good night, to the man in the tan trench coat, even if you didn't see him come in. My voice barely worked, just a croak through cracked lips. Good night, I whispered. He nodded, slowly, then he didn't turn. Didn't walk. He just faded. Like smoke curling away from a dying fire. Gone. By 5 a.m., I was a wreck, no other word for it. I wasn't tired. I was ruined. My nerves were shot, my body soaked in a cocktail of sweat, fear, and freezer frost. My hoodie clung to me like a wet shroud, and my mind was somewhere else, fractured, frayed, not quite mine anymore. I sat curled in the far corner of the shop, knees hugged tight to my chest, back pressed to the wall like it could shield me from something I couldn't name. I stared blankly at the floor, at nothing, everything. My breathing came in short, shallow bursts. That's when I heard it, whistling. A casual tune, cheerful, bouncing between the tile and the glass like this was just another Tuesday. Greg strolled in through the front door, through the still-locked front door, his boots squeaking on the floor, his eyes scanning the shop like he'd just stepped out for a smoke and come back in. Like nothing had happened. Like the night hadn't chewed me up and spit out whatever was left. He took one look at me, on the floor, trembling, broken, and smiled. You followed the rules? I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry as sand. So I just nodded. Barely. Greg's grin stretched wider, like he'd been waiting to ask that question all night. Good, he said, as if that was all that mattered. Then you get to leave. Just like that. No explanation. No pat on the back. No apology for throwing me into the jaws of whatever this place was. He walked past me like I was furniture. Like I wasn't the first, like I wouldn't be the last. That I quit that morning. Didn't clean up. Didn't say goodbye. I walked out and never looked back. Not once. Never picked up my last check. Didn't even tell my cousin why I came home pale and shaking and smelling like old grease and freezer burn. I just left it behind. Tried to forget, but you don't forget. Subsational, you can't, because sometimes, on the rare nights when sleep feels slippery, when I drive by the edge of town without meaning to, I see it again. The shop. Still standing between the abandoned vape store and the flickering laundromat. Still glowing under that sickly yellow parking lot light like a crooked tooth in the dark, open sign buzzing a dull red. Lights on. The door shut, and someone inside. Behind the counter. Cleaning the soda machine. He wears my hoodie. My shoes. Same scratch on the hand. Same way he tilts his head when he thinks no one's watching. But he isn't me. Not anymore. He just stands there. Watching. Waiting. Still following the rules.